Gibbons versus Ogden. Back in the 1800s, New York state law gave individuals the right to operate steamboats on waters within the state jurisdiction. However, this law created confusion when other states duplicated it and made other requirements. For example, some states made out-of-state boats pay fees for navigation rights. The law seemed to be different everywhere, and this led to the case of Gibbons versus Ogden.
In 1808, Robert Fulton and Robert Livingston acquired a monopoly from the New York State Legislature to operate steamboats on state waters, and this also extended to interstate waters. The appellant in this case, Aaron Ogden, has a Fulton-Livingston license, or a state license which granted them access to the areas under the control of the monopoly. The appellant, Thomas Gibson, on the other hand, held a federal license that allowed him to work on the waterways of New York and New Jersey, and found himself in direct competition with Ogden's ships.
Gibbons challenged the monopoly license granted by the state to Ogden and brought him to the court. This New York State court upheld the monopoly, but the fight wasn't over yet. Next, Ogden filed a complaint in the Court of Chancery asking them to restrain Gibbons from operating his boats. His lawyer, Daniel Webster, said states often pass laws on issues regarding interstate matters and that states should have concurrent power with Congress on issues concerning interstate commerce. For these reasons, he said the monopoly should be upheld. Gibbons' lawyer, Daniel Webster, said that according to the Constitution, Congress had the exclusive power over interstate commerce, and that to argue against this statement would lead to confusing local policies. The Court of Chancery argued in favor of Ogden and restricted Gibbons from operating his boat. Next, the case moved on to the Court of Errors of New York when Gibbons filed an appeal. This court agreed with the decision made by the previous one. Once again, Gibbons appealed, but this time to the Supreme Court, and a decision was in 1826, just 35 years after the ratification of the Constitution. The four decisions made by the Supreme Court were:
First, Ogden was allowed to monopolize the steamboat business in New York. Second, Gibbons' federal license took priority over Ogden's state license. Third, travel licenses must be granted to the federal government to be legitimate. And fourth, Gibbons had to share his use of the New York waterways with Ogden. This case took many turns as it went in front of several courts, but in the end it marked the key turning point for the expansion of federal power to address national problems. It was known that the Commerce Clause in the Constitution gave Congress some power over interstate commerce, but it was unclear just how much, and this easy misinterpretation of words led to the disagreement between Gibbons and Ogden.
The majority opinion as stated by John Marshall is, the subject to be regulated is commerce. It becomes necessary to settle the meaning of the word. The counsel for the appealee would limit it to traffic, to buying and selling, or the interchange of commodities, and do not admit that it comprehends navigation. Commerce undoubtedly is traffic, but it is something more. It is intercourse. The mind can scarcely conceive a system for regulating commerce between nations which shall include all laws concerning navigation. The subject to which the power is applied is to commerce among the several states. The word among means intermingled with. A thing with is among others, is intermingled with them. Commerce among the states cannot stop at the external boundary line of each state, but may be introduced into the interior. It is not intended to say that these words comprehend that commerce, which is completely internal, which is carried on between man and man in a state, or between different parts of the same state, and which do not extend or affect other states. Such a power would be inconvenient and is certainly unnecessary. The completely internal commerce of a state, then, may be considered as reserved for the state itself. This might be summarized by saying that the U.S. Constitution had a commerce clause that allowed the federal government to regulate commerce wherever it might be, including within the borders of a state. Previously, it was thought that the federal government had power only over interstate commerce, but Marshall's opinion said that the commerce clause applied here too.